Hello, I'm Joe DeLisi, and welcome to the Joe DeLisi Financial Advisor Podcast. So we've had a lot of new clients, some new prospective clients come our way, really already in January, a bunch in December as well. And it got me thinking. Like I've never done a podcast on my backstory. I know a lot about my clients. I mean, a lot. As we're preparing for retirement, and we're in some cases we're preparing kids, for college and things like that. I know a lot about you. I tell my story here and there, but I think it would be nice just to sort of put it out here on a podcast. That way, everyone knows it. So for new clients and maybe old clients, learn something about me. It'll be short. We're not going to go too deep into it, but just some overview stuff. So I'll start at the end first. So I'm married to Jamie. We have 6 kids, 5 girls and a boy. We've got Ava, Amelia, Gavin, kind of in the middle there. Those are the 3 teenagers, and then we start all over again. We've got Rosie, who's 9, and then we have Birdie, who's 5, and Winnie, who is almost 4 in May. So pretty busy, mostly for my poor wife, but pretty busy. This is my 28th year in the business, so almost 30 years now. And really, my story is, ups and downs like any business owner, I would assume. So I started off in college studying communication. So I don't have a business background. I don't have a finance background. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in college, which is pretty normal, I would suppose. And as I was graduating, I met somebody. I was actually bartending at an Applebee's of all places, and I ran into somebody who was looking to hire some people for internships. It was in a college town, so that was fairly normal. You'd have people coming in, trying to meet the students and whatnot. It was at a very large insurance company, and I took it because I needed an internship to graduate. That was really it. I didn't want to be in financial services. I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't want to be in, what I knew I didn't want to do. I didn't want to work in a cubicle on somebody else's time. I just never really, I never liked it. It didn't work for me in college, and I was looking for something where I could maybe build my own thing. It was a lot of risk, and I took it. And so what happened was, all my buddies were graduating and they were making pretty good money. This is back in 97, 98. They graduated with good degrees and they would get, a $60,000 income to start, and they were able to buy the car and get the nice apartment and, go on trips and things. And I just decided to kind of gamble and roll the dice a little bit and start my own thing with no salary, no income at all to speak of in this industry of financial services. And I started off for 2 years there and at that company. And I learned a lot. It was a good company, and it was fine. I didn't love it. I was working really, really long hours, nights, weekends, all of it. It's what you have to do to, establish a clientele. But truly, I was actually on my way out. I wanted to quit. I liked the work. I didn't like the hours. I didn't feel like I was making, any inroads. And I didn't feel like I was doing anything really that different. There were just a lot of advisors at this company, and they all did the same thing. And when I would meet advisors from other companies, it was all the same thing there too. I didn't feel like I was differentiating myself in any real way. So I was getting ready to kind of look for the next thing. I was even looking at maybe selling cars, like whatever, anything I could do to get out. And as luck would have it, I was recruited to a new firm, which I took, thinking, well, what's the worst that could happen? I'll do this for another year or two and just see. And that was really the turning point. That was in 2000. And so a lot happened in 2000. Obviously, markets crashed or began. We didn't know it was the time, but, the bubble started to burst in the dot-com stocks. And then 2001, of course, the 9/11 terror attacks, and then the recession. And it was a mess of 3 years. But I was learning real planning, really how do you set somebody up for distribution planning and retirement planning starting in their late 30s and 40s. And I was really learning it. I was still a young kid, right? So I didn't know what I didn't know. And I think I was wise enough to know that. A lot of the younger advisors I meet now, nothing against them, but they tend to think they have it all figured out, especially if they have a finance background. So I think it was very beneficial for me not to have a finance background because I was really an open book and I was willing to look at everything differently. It's like that old Apple ad, think different. That was sort of me. I was open to anything. So really what happened there was that was in the Washington, D.C. area. I did okay. I was building my business. I wasn't married, young guy. Just, again, I could work all the different hours. But I learned something about investing. I learned that, again, everybody was doing the same thing. They were doing it the same way, and it didn't work for my clients. I mean, that 3-year period of time where the S&P and the NASDAQ dropped significantly. Again, I was young, so I didn't have a lot of clients, but I saw the ones who did have money in the markets were very spooked. They didn't know what to do, and many advisors didn't have an answer for them. And so I spent the next several years kind of trying to figure that out. I was doing a pretty good job on planning, but the investment side of it just was sort of, there wasn't really a good place to go learn. You could read, but it wasn't very practical. The advice wasn't practical, I guess, in my opinion. So that was, I'd say about 2006 or so. I moved away from Washington, D.C. I had already established a pretty good business there. I think I was, 28 or no, yeah, 20, I don't know, late 20s. And I moved to Memphis, Tennessee. And I really just did that. I didn't know anybody from Memphis. I didn't know anything about Memphis. I just knew that the homes were cheap and they were beautiful. So a house you could buy in Memphis, Tennessee for 5,000 square feet, brand new, brick, beautiful. That house would be 900 to $1,000,001 in Washington, D.C., and it needed work. And so I was just kind of starting a family, and I couldn't do that. So I moved to Memphis, Tennessee, there for about 15 years or so. Loved it. Memphis is a great town. Really liked it. Really built a good clientele there. Really began to learn investments and how we do things different. And I'm not going to go into that on this podcast. You can just go listen to any of the podcasts here, but that'll walk you through how we're different. But we are radically different in how we invest for our clients and what we do, and how that plays into distribution planning, which really all roads lead to exit planning. And that's what we say about business owners. Someday you're going to exit that business. You're either going to die owning it, or you're going to sell it, to an insider or an outsider. But you're going to exit that business, and that's the same for all of my executives and my physician clients. And we're all going to exit the workforce someday, some sooner than later. And so my eye is always on that for my clients, even if they're not thinking about it. I am. So Memphis, Tennessee was great. Started a family. And right around 2019, Jamie and I decided to maybe move out west. We were looking at Arizona. We were looking at Las Vegas. Las Vegas is actually a lot like Memphis, Tennessee. It's just a big, small town. And you've got what everyone knows about Las Vegas, which is the Strip, all the casinos and whatnot. But really, there's a nice little town west of it. Great place to raise a family. Great weather. Beautiful mountains. Just a cool place to live. No tax. No income tax. So 2019, we moved. Started a move. We bought a house out there. We had a house in Missouri. We had a house in Memphis at the time. Sold the house in Memphis and started to kind of set up shop out west, right in time for COVID. So that virus shut everything down. Nevada at the time had a governor that was very restrictive, followed a lot of the California protocols. And so it was really kind of like living in a prison. I mean, it was really difficult to do anything. And so we said, that's not going to work for us. And so we wound up moving to St. Louis, Missouri, which is where my wife is from and all of her family's from. She's got a very, very big family. And so we're up here in St. Louis. Sold the house down in Tennessee, which we loved. That was a tough one. That was a bitter pill to swallow. Kept having kids, added those extra 3 little munchkins at the end, Rosie, Winnie, and Birdie. And got through the pandemic, got through all of that, really changed everything that we did. Sarah Apple, who's my assistant, has been with me since, I think, 2012. I met her when she was about 23, and she's in her mid-30s now. And really, I mean, everyone who works with me knows Sarah. She's in every meeting. She runs everything. I do all the planning and I do all the investing. She does everything else, and she's a very key part of the team. Always has been, and it's really just the two of us. And she's able to handle everything that needs to be handled on the client side. So she's in Memphis. She stayed there. We're in St. Louis. We moved everything virtual, which everybody did in 2020, 2021, and we kept it that way. It keeps our overhead low, keeps fees down. Allows us to work with clients that we've never met really face-to-face, from California, Hawaii, Maine, everywhere in between. And we continue to do so, which has really opened it up, because it used to be that if you wanted to maybe refer a friend or a family member to me, it was always, they got to drive down to the office and we would meet face to face, and it took a lot of time, and that's just how work was done. But with technology and Zoom meetings and whatnot, it's really ceased to be an issue. And so as I sit here now, again, 6 kids, I just turned 50, almost 30 years in this business. Long way to go. I can really look out in the future and know that I'll be able to see my clients into and through retirement. My idea at 50 is to work a very, very long time. Sarah's young, I'm young. I've got young kids. Always looking to add maybe a younger advisor so that when I am 65 and 75 and my clients are in the middle of retirement, we're not just walking away. That's not the idea. We want our work to continue. And so we're kind of in that process now, just at the very, very beginnings of looking for that young guy or girl. And with a lot of teenagers who are entering the workforce over the next 10 years, it could even be a family member. I'm really not sure. Don't know. Would love it, but you can't force things. So that's really my story in 10 minutes or so or less. Not meant to be an exhaustive telltale everything. I didn't even get into the fun stuff, like I was a childhood actor and love speaking on stage, do a lot of speaking around the country at large industry events and small, upwards of 600 plus attendees. I love that. And I like the small ones too, where I coach advisors one-on-one and in small groups, 7, or so, because the next generation really of advice has got to come not from the internet, not from AI. It's got to come from mentors who are in their 50s, who are teaching people who are in their 20s, just like occurred with me. And so that's the idea. That's where we're headed. If you're a client of mine, you might know some of this, and some of it might be new to you. If you're not, now you know a little bit about me, as maybe we get to know each other, as a prospective client. For those of you who are clients, and you're ever thinking, maybe I'll send Joe's name along, but I don't know if he's taking new clients. Generally, we are. We get a little picky sometimes. Really what we're looking for, it's not income or asset based. It's really people based. I'm looking for people who want help. I'm looking for nice people, so if you've got somebody that you don't like hanging around, don't send them our way. We're probably not going to like them either. But, good people, again, who want the help, need the help, and are open to being coached through financial behaviors and how this all works and intricate designs around investments and distribution planning. Well, that's right up our alley. That's it for today's podcast. A quick, simple, down and dirty. We'll be back in 2 weeks getting more into probably what's going on in the markets post today, which is the inauguration of the 47th president, Donald Trump, who's only the second president to get a mulligan, to get to go again. One-term president, then loses, then back, and so we'll see how that goes. So in a couple weeks, we'll see you again. So this is the end of this podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.